So as you may have noticed, my background has changed a bit. I've added a few new posters. I added Stitch over there because I didn't have any Disney representation in the background, and I talk about Disney so much, and I love Stitch. How could I not do that? Pokemon just got moved up a bit. Wonder Woman got moved over, and I've added a Black Clover poster in the background. That's just one of the ones of the guild. I wanted to put my hero poster up, but I'm like, I didn't have one that kind of fit with, like, I guess kind of going a little bit closer to the colors that were over there. But, you know, at some point in the future, we'll see. If I ever get more wall scrolls, I might switch out the Sailor Moon ones every now and then, but not yet. I didn't really add anything new over here. Some things just got shifted around. The dog is here for a short while. We'll see how long that lasts. Let's see. Oh, just before I get into the video itself, remember a couple of months ago I made that video about like clovers and, you know, how I found a ton of 4-leaf clovers like last year and this year. I found 5 more today. Out walking this bonehead, found 5 more 4-leaf clovers. Yesterday I found a 5-leaf clover, and I think either like Friday or Saturday, or Friday or Thursday, I found another 4-leaf clover. So I keep finding them every now and then, and, you know, clover. So I keep saving them. I'm gonna do possibly some stuff with some resin soon and some acrylic stuff. We'll see how that goes. But I might be doing that soon. Might show some of it on the channel. We'll see. As the title of this video says, and as it goes along with the other internship / work studies that I've been talking about for my hero, this one is going to be about the 3rd round of the internships / like 2nd round of the hero work studies. The first internships, as I went, they were, you know, kind of mandatory that the students had to do after they did the sports festival. The 2nd round, which was the 1st round of the work studies, was more a, they could do it once they got their provisional licenses. Bakugo and Shoto were, of course, excluded from that because they had to do the remedial license training. And now at this point, at the end of this latest season, we of course see the students, before we get into the My Villain Academia setup, of course, which I am currently watching. I am planning on doing a video about the Meta Liberation Army, where I kind of talk about like the different people that are a part of it. Because I did talk about Curious when I did the video about like the villains at rest several months ago. And I am planning on doing another video where I talk about the League of Villains a little bit more after the after this season wraps up, just to kind of go over what we've seen and then kind of show like how the how the League of Villains would by the end of the series. Spoiler alert if you don't read the manga and you're watching these and you don't read the manga and you're just now watching the anime and don't know what's going to happen. Spoiler alert, Shigaraki and the rest of the league take over the, take over the Meta Liberation Army. And it becomes the Paranormal Liberation Army, or the Paranormal Army type thing, or it's like the League of Villains combined with that. And that's not good. Which of course leads directly into like the arc, the Paranormal Liberation War arc that we just kind of finished up with in the actual manga, which of course leads to Izuku then going out on his own. But this one is going to be about the 3rd round, the 2nd round of the work studies, and these ones are mandatory for every single hero course student. The opening that we get for this one is it takes place just after Shoto and Katsuki have gotten their, licenses, their, provisional licenses, so they can now be considered heroes and such like that. And what ends up happening is, Nezu has like this big, kind of, teacher meeting with all the teachers that are at UA. And they're like sitting and talking. And he's like, okay, so yeah, we have to basically send all of the students, all of the hero course students that can go into a work study. And it's basically, I think it's Midnight that basically points out as like, it's basically like a field test. It's like field training. It's like you kind of like sink or swim and see how you do. Which admittedly, the dog sneezed, which Yes. Are you gonna do it again? Are you gonna sneeze again? I'm the one with the allergies. Okay, so I want to get a video of it at some point, but whenever he's like sneezing downstairs, he looks like he like got into cocaine because he'll like rub his nose all over the carpet, and it's like funny, and we're like, did you find the cocaine stash or something? Do you have a cocaine stash that we don't know about, dog? Do not do drugs. Don't do drugs. Don't do that. Don't. Oh sure, I insulted you, and now you want to leave. The dog left. I figured that was going to happen at some point. This round is, of course, required every single hero course student, minus Mirio, who at this point is still currently not able to use his quirk because he's kind of quirkless at the moment, has to do their, has to go and do, work studies, hero work studies. And I'm going to go through the different agencies or groups that each of the students go to where we know where they went. And like a little bit about like the heroes that are in charge of them. And then the main ones that we see are, of course, we see in the anime, we see Uraka and Sue with Ryuku. And then we see, of course, the Endeavor Agency with, Izuku, Shoto, and Kasuki. And that's basically just called the Endeavor Agency arc, is what this is referred to as. And of course, I'll go over that, but I'm going to go through the other ones first. So basically, it's just the commission, or the safety commission is basically like, the Hero Public Safety Commission is saying, okay, so you have to have all of the students go and do this. All the Hero Corps students must go and do these work studies. Because it's kind of like a sink or swim, because they know something is coming. This, of course, overlaps with the time frame when Hawks is currently undercover, like working alongside the League of Villains and then the Paranormal Liberation Army. When he's like in that case, and he's trying to gather information for them, of course, because Hawks is, of course, very good at like spying and going undercover and things like that. So that's what's going on there. And, it's basically the commission is like, okay, we know something big is coming because of the fact that, Hawks has been able to give us a few little hints. And, it's like, something's coming and you got to get these kids prepared. And like, Hero Society at the moment, is like, it's like on a knife's edge at this point in time with like All Might's gone. Their symbol of peace is gone. And like this whole thing about like, oh, there was this huge powerful villain, All for One out there, and like now he's in Tartarus, but now like, the League is still on the run and everything. And the Meta Liberation Army is kind of starting to rumble a little bit. But I'll go over that a little bit more in the Liberation Army video. And of course, so all the staff were talking, it's like, okay, so we have to have all the students go and do these work studies. And, they let them have, like, their Christmas, and then, like, at the New Year's, like, when they go off to go and do their hero studies. Now we're going to get into the different groups, and I'm going to be going over Class 1A and Class 1B, and then any of the other students at the moment that we know where they're doing their work studies. So the first agency that I'm going to talk about is Lurkers, which is actually a hero team comprised of Edgeshot, Mount Lady, and Kamui Woods. We, of course, have kind of known about Mount Lady and Kamui Woods from the very beginning of the series. Edgeshot is introduced a little bit later. Mount Lady is, of course, she can change her size. Kamui Woods is kind of like a living tree. He can, create a whole bunch of, they're not vines, but they're like branches that he can control and manipulate and such. And then Edgeshot seems to have the ability to, like, compress himself down, and, like, go, like, become like a razor's edge type of a thing. They formed their team Lurkers recently. Edgeshot and Kamui Woods are both in the top 10 at this point in time. I believe so. And then Mount Lady is like within the top 20, I think, via the last hero rankings for the Billboard that we saw. And the 4 students that they have currently work studying with them are Kaminari, or Denki Kaminari, Charge Bolt, who of course has electrification. We also have Hanta Sero, who is, of course, cellophane, and he, of course, has tape. We have Minoru Mineta, who is grape juice, and he of course has pop off. And from class 1B, we have Ibara Shiozaki, who is of course Vine. Former name is Maria for her hero name. Current name is Vine, and her quirk is Vine, so she can create and manipulate vines with her hair. Mineta has previous experience with Mount Lady because that's where he did his initial internship, was with her, and she basically treated him as like a maid. She made him clean the entire time, from what we noticed. But like they're all working with lurkers for the time being for their training. And we don't really get to see too much of them. We see a little bit, like we see like a tiny little clip of like the students with them. And Kaminari and of course Ibara have kind of a slight history because they had to fight in the sports festival. They had to fight against each other for their combat revs, and then which Ibara won. And then they also kind of had to deal with each other during the Class 1A versus Class 1B joint training exercise. And so it's like, so let's just like see what put these ones together with this group. And actually it was said by, I think Mount Lady said that like, Kamui Woods and Ibara would actually make a good team up because they're both like plant-based type things. Which the dog must see something outside. I apologize if you can hear him barking in the background. I'm not really worried about it. My mom's home, so she can take care of him. The next group that we have is Gang Orca Agency, which of course is headed up by Gang Orca. We see him initially, I believe, during the provisional license exam. He plays like the quote-unquote villain that's attacking at the time frame when the students are working on their rescue skills. And he's there, and he also is part of the remedial license exam training when it comes to Shoto and Katsuki, along with Inasa and Kami. He's there trying to help train them up to make them stronger. His quirk is basically, I don't remember what his quirk is, but he looks like an orca, so I'm assuming he can basically do anything an orca can do or like a killer whale can do, which those things can be very, very scary. They can be very scary because they have a history of killing sharks. So do certain species of dolphins. But the two students that they have with them are Koyoka Jiro, Earphone Jack, and Mezzo Shoji, Tentacle, Quirk Dupla Arms, are currently interning with Gang Orca. Both of them actually, their similarity in their quirks are obviously quite good for reconnaissance. And that might be something that they're very much learning to utilize in that case. Koyoka is also, of course, learning how to be able to fight more with her, using her heartbeat vibrations and stuff like that. And, using her earphones to, plug into the speakers on her hands or her palms or her boots. So we'll see kind of how those go, see how, kind of where that puts her down the line. And of course, Shoji, he can, of course, he can, multiply his arms. We have seen that they can be cut off, and it probably does cause him pain, but we saw this in the training camp arc. They can be sliced off, and it probably does cause him pain because he does bleed, but it's not like he can't then, it'll heal and he can then regrow the limbs, of course. Plus, he can also be quite strong because of, the number of arms he can have kind of, increases his strength to a degree. I'm sure there's a limit of how many various types of limbs he can create. Probably not along the same, because it's very similar, and I don't know if I've made this comparison before, but it is quite similar to Robin from One Piece. Nico Robin, who of course has the Hana Hana no Mi, and she can of course, multiply her limbs and create giant versions of herself or giant versions of her limbs. She seems to have a limit of how many she can do, but it's an extremely, extremely high limit. Shoji's would be much lower than that. And they're currently interning with Gang Orca. I think we see a few other sidekicks in the background. We also get introduced to a couple of sidekicks during this arc. The next agency is the Wash Agency, which we haven't really heard that much about. It is the laundry hero Wash, who back when they did the Billboard charts, he is the one that looks like a washing machine. And when I first saw him, when they did that, like when they showed those in the manga, I'm like, so the guy's a washing machine. He better have a really good quirk if he's trying to pull off the washing machine gambit. And he does, actually. And this is not shown in this arc, but it will hopefully be shown very well in the Liberation War arc, which will be like kind of the next thing that'll be coming up in the anime, probably at the beginning of the next season of the anime. And his quirk is called Clear Bubbler. And it allows him to create and control soapy water from his body. So not just water, but soapy water specifically. And he can use it to, his stream is strong enough to keep several people in the air at various points in time. And he uses it as a way to, like, get people out of harm's way, move objects out of harm's way, or like derail objects. He also is able to create large soap bubbles, generate very large soap bubbles that can be used to envelop targets and then make them float. By that thing, it can probably also be used to like envelop, people who are in, like in danger and then like float them out of dangerous situations. And he seems to be a very high-ranking hero because he was in the top 10 heroes when we saw the original lineup of the top 10 heroes after All Might is no longer, number 1 and Endeavor is now number 1. I don't remember which number he was. I want to say he was like 6 or something, but I could be wrong on that one, so don't quote me on that one. But he has, for his 2 students, he has Koji Koda, who is, of course, Anima, and his quirk is, of course, Anavoice. He can speak to animals and kind of, make them do his bidding. Koda would never do that. He can speak to animals and he can kind of control them. And then the other one that we have there is from Class 1B is Manga Fukudoshi, who is Comic Man, whose quirk is Comic, who of course allows him to, he can basically create onomatopoeia, which I find this so funny, and I find it like, that's an awesome thing to be able to do, because we saw this, the way that he executed this, the way that he utilized this during the fight with, between his team and, Yagirozo's team, when it was with their teams versus each other for the Class 1A, Class 1B fights. And he can literally create, like, his face is a manga panel, which is so funny. And he can create giant, solid versions of, like, an onomatopoeia. Like, if he goes, whoosh, if he makes it, uses this quirk, it goes, whoosh, it'll make, like, a whoosh, but it'll be like really, really powerful, depending on like, I guess, how loud he makes it or so. It'll actually generate a wind of some kind. Or like he created like a wall out of one of his onomatopoeias at one point. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And, they're currently interning at the WASH agency, as I said, and they're working on their communication. Koda is currently working on his communication skills and control over animals. As I mentioned before in previous videos, I don't remember if they've stated whether or not Koda is vegetarian. And I just say that because I think it out of all of Class 1A, it would make the most sense for him to be the vegetarian, because quite obviously he can talk to animals and he can understand them. And, out of all of the characters, he would be the one that I would expect to be vegetarian. Kind of also Sue, but mostly just him. And I don't know if he's ever stated to be vegetarian. If he has been stated to be that and I just missed that somewhere, then go ahead and comment it. The next one is the Majestic Agency, which is run by Enma Kanagi, who is hero name is Majestic. I've talked about him before. I talked about him back when I did the Heroes That Have Died video. And I talked about him because, of course, during the Paranormal Liberation arc, war arc, he unfortunately dies. His quirk, and I mentioned it in that video too, but I'll mention it here because it's been a while. His quirk is called Magic, and it allows him to create floating platforms out of ring-shaped energy that he generates from his wrists. We don't get to see him use any of his quirk at the moment, but later on in the Liberation arc or Liberation War arc, I'm sure we'll see quite a bit of it. And the platforms can levitate himself and others. And they can also be, it also says that he can, the size and limit can only transport objects that can fit through it. So, basically it's like, make a platform over here and make a platform on the other side of the house. I can step on the platform and it'll take me to the other side of the house via, teleports. Or not teleporting, sorry, not teleporting. He can't teleport stuff. That's different. He can just transport the objects that can fit through them. I'm assuming we'll get a little bit more of an explanation of this when we get to the actual, when we get to see what he does. But the two students that are interning with him are Momo Yayorozu, so Creati, whose quirk is, of course, creation. And then, of course, Setsuna Togaga, that was wrong. Setsuna Tokaga, who is Lizardy, whose quirk is a lizard tail splitter. We saw what she could do during the versus setup for the Class 1A versus Class 1B fights. She has the ability to break off parts of her body, and then she can manipulate them up to a certain range from where she is, and then bring them back. She can also regrow parts of her body. If certain parts take too much damage, she can make them stop moving and then regenerate them, which is a really freaking awesome quirk. And we found out, in the anime it was stated that she was one of the other recommendation students. Which, of course, the 4 recommendation students that, of course, we know about are, of course, Momo, Shoto, Setsuna, and then Mudman is the other one, and I'll be talking about him a little bit later. He's one of the other Class 1B students. So they're currently interning with Majestic, of course, over their winter break. We just see them. We don't really get to see too much else of them during that time frame. Again, the manga arc doesn't really center on them. I would have liked for what the anime could have done is because they expanded a little bit more on what Sue and Uraraka got to do, and I'll get to that. But I would have liked it if they also expanded on showing what some of the other groups get to do. Even not a whole episode to them or anything like that, but just show a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, just to kind of show off what some of the other heroes could do. I would have liked that. I'm not necessarily surprised they didn't, just given the fact of how much was already in that season, plus the fact that we're not finished with this season yet, and we still have the rest of the My Villain Academia to finish up. And then that'll probably end out the season with the My Villain Academia. And then next season will probably, when they start with the Paranormal Liberation War arc, with the hospital raid arc, is probably where we're going to get, where next season is going to start. Or that's what I'm thinking where it's going to start. So I'm not surprised they didn't really elaborate on anything, but I would have liked them to, or at least shown a little bit more of what some of the heroes could do. So that's what we have there. The next one is, and as I've stated before, Japanese, I'm getting better at reading Japanese, but I apologize for mispronouncing names. We have the, Ori Musha Agency, who is the equipped hero, Yorori Musha. We don't know anything about his quirk. During the lineup for the top 10 heroes, he's the older looking guy. It looks like he's dressed like a samurai, which is just cool already. He has a lot of, I'm assuming his quirk has to do something with either controlling different types of weapons, possibly. It doesn't state here anything about his quirk. I couldn't find anything where it states specifically about what his quirk is. I'm hoping we find that a little bit later, but I don't know if it was just Horikoshi was just I'm just gonna draw this guy just because, and there he's number whatever level hero or whatever for the top 10. We don't see anything else of him, unfortunately. He's there during the battle with the Paranormal Liberation War arc, but then later on, when they are doing during the current or the most recent arc, or like the Deku solo arc where he's on his own, and they're talking about like all the different heroes that are like resigning and retiring. He's one of the ones that retires. Admittedly, he does seem to be on the older side, so it would kind of make sense for him to want to retire given the fact of everything else that has been going on. But the three students that he has with him are Yuga Aoyama, so can't stop sparkling or can't stop twinkling, depending on which way you want to put it. And his, of course, quirk is navel laser. And then we have Toru Hugakure, who's, of course, Invisible Girl, whose quirk is, of course, invisibility. And then we have Mina Ashido Pinky, whose quirk is, of course, acid. They're currently interning with him, with Musha, that agency. Just, getting, more familiar with being heroes and everything. The next one is again, I apologize. The Shishido Agency, who is run by Lion Hero Shishido. Again, don't know anything about the guy's quirk. This is kind of what he looks like. He looks kind of cool. He seems to have like a lion theme about him because he has like a mane around his neck and everything. His quirk might have something to do with a lion. Again, we don't see, I looked to try to see if I could find some information about his quirk. I really couldn't find anything. But the four students that he has interning with him are, Mashiro Ojiro, Tailman, so quirk tail, Rikido Sato, Sugarman, quirk Sugar Rush, and then he has two members of Class 1B, and I apologize for mispronouncing their names, Jutaro Shishihira, no idea if there's a relation, sure there might be, I don't know, who is Gavandan, I don't know, whose quirk is Beast, who can, turn into like this giant, like, kind of, quote unquote, I don't know, Chewbacca, Wookiee type beast, and then he can like slim down again, shrink back down again. And then Nirin Geki Shoda, who is mines. Mines isn't like land mines. And his quirk is twin impact, which means he can like make something, he can physically manipulate objects, and like they'll also always hit the target twice to increase the impact damage. They're currently interning with him. I looked, I don't know if there's a connection. Again, don't know that much about the guy's quirk. We'll find out later. Then we, of course, have the Manual Agency, which is run by Manual, who is a hero that has the ability to manipulate water. And the current intern that he has right now is, of course, Tenya Ida Ingenium. His quirk is, of course, Engine. This is, of course, the same agency where Ida did his initial internship with Manual back during the Hero Killer Stain arc. Admittedly, he was there slightly under false pretenses. But Manual obviously has welcomed Ida back. He seems to like Ida quite a bit, so he welcomed him back to be a little more, give him some more training. And apparently Manual helps Ida loosen up a little bit, because like when they come back from from their training, Ida's like, Manual helped me like loosen up a little bit. And he's like doing like a dance move. I'm like, Ida, please stop. You can't dance. So we do see Manual during the Paranormal Liberation War arc. I think he during the time frame he's during that battle at one point he's trying to help like Eraserhead, trying to keep Eraserhead's eyes like moist and everything, like putting water into them, so that way Eraserhead can keep working on trying to like erase Shigaraki's quirk while he's fighting Deku or fighting whoever it is he's fighting. So we'll see Manual again. As far as I'm aware, Manual is not one of the ones that dies, because I don't remember him being on my list of dead heroes. And then we have the Hawks Agency, which during this whole time frame, Hawks is, of course, currently, kind of undercover with the Paranormal Liberation Army / League of Villains, working with them, trying to get an in there. And, of course, his quirk is, wings, feathers, whatever it is, where you can like, manipulate all of his feathers and everything like that, which is admittedly, Hawk's quirk is awesome. I do admit that very much. Hawk's quirk is pretty dang cool. It's like, I have these 2 giant wings on my back, and now I'm just going to, you know, manipulate all the feathers to fly all over the place and, like, stop crime and, like, save people and everything. That's just awesome. And his intern is, of course, Fumikage Tokoyami, who is Tsukuyomi, is his hero name. Of course, he has Dark Shadow. They, of course, that's the only place that Fumikage, sorry, has been doing his internships. That's where he had his initial internship, and then, of course, where he did his first work studies, and now where he's doing this work study. So he's fairly familiar with Hawks. And he's improving with Hawks. As I mentioned in the previous video, you know, Hawks, you know, took him out onto the roof and it's like, seemed to be trying to get, you know, Fumikage to not be quite so, you know, terrified of flying. And of course, you know, Fumikage does develop with Dark Shadow the ability to fly, at least for, you know, certain, you know, distances, I'm going to assume. I don't think his flight is an indefinite thing. It depends on how strong Dark Shadow is. So, you know, we see Fumikage there doing more training there alongside the other sidekicks that, you know, Hawks has at his agency. And, you know, Fumikage and Hawks kind of do seem to get along rather well, because during the Paranormal Liberation Army arc, Fumikage is very concerned about trying to get to Hawks and saving Hawks and making sure that Hawks is okay, because he is kind of his mentor. Next up, Fat Gum Agency. Okay, so Fat Gum, obviously I've been over Fat Gum before in the previous intern video. He, of course, has fat absorption. You know, his body can sustain a large amount of fat. He's perfectly healthy with it since it's part of his quirk. And given the fact that, like, it's not morbid thing, but we still get it because, you know, we saw Night Eye's funeral, of course, at the tail end of that arc, at the Hasaikai arc. And Fat Gum has already gotten back up to his, you know, full size. So, I mean, I'm assuming he just has the ability to generate large amounts of fat very easily, just like from his diet. He probably also has like a high caloric intake diet just to be able to maintain that, which of course, that's his quirk. It's designed to be able to help, you know, his body is designed that way. He may still like try to get like healthier foods. They just might be very high calorie food. And Fat Gum is also quite strong to a degree as well. But the 3 interns that he has are, of course, you know, Ijiro Kirishima, who is Red Riot, of course, quirk hardening. And new addition to the team is Tetsu, who is, of course, Real Steel, quirk Steel. And then, of course, we have Tamaki Amajiki, Sun Eater, who, of course, his quirk is Manifest. I went over those quite a bit. The only one that I haven't really talked about is, of course, Tetsu, Real Steel. His quirk, of course, allows him to basically turn his body into steel. He can also absorb a large amount of heat, as we saw with him fighting Shoto. And him and Kirishima get along great. Which I like that they have that relationship. That's a very nice relationship for them to have. Because I don't like how Monoma keeps trying to put like Class 1A and Class 1B against each other. But like the rest of the class are just like, for the most part, it's like yeah, a little bit of healthy competition is fine. And the rest, you know, like Class 1A agrees. It's like, yeah, some healthy competition is fine, but not the way that Monoma does it. And I like how everyone's just like, yeah, no, it's probably a good thing that we have Kendo in class because she keeps Monoma in line, and otherwise the whole class would be like Monoma, and that wouldn't be good. But, you know, so they're off, you know, doing that one. And then, of course, then we have the Ryuku Agency, which, of course, headed by Ryuku, the Dragon Lady, as I mentioned in the previous video. Her 3 interns are, of course, Ochako Uraraka, or Gravity, of course, quirk 0 gravity, Suyu Asui, Froppy, quirk frog, and then, of course, Nejire Hado, Nejire-chan, quirk Wave Motion. I've been over their quirks in the previous internship video. You know, not really anybody new with that. We do see some of the other like side kind of the other sidekicks that Ryuku has. And in the manga, there's not a whole lot of you know, too much that goes on there. We still get like Ochako and Sue are off doing that, and we still see them there. But in the anime, we of course got an extra little episode about them that centers around their team, Ryuku's team, teaming up with Selkie's team. And of course, they, you know, Selkie, you know, it's like they're dealing with smugglers trying to smuggle in like drugs and stuff like that, or like certain medicines that's, you know, illegal drugs like trigger and things like that. And, you know, Ryuku and all of her group go to where Selkie is based, and like they kind of have like a nice fun day out at the beach at the beginning of the, you know, part of the episode, and like they're just like, yay, we're all just gonna have fun and everything. And Ochako is of course you know, Ochako and Sue are of course very much bonding with, you know, Ryuku and her team and everything. Ryuku seems to have quite a bit of affection for all of her for her interns and for her sidekick. She seems very protective of them, which, I mean, you know, she's a freaking dragon, so she might have some instincts of like, small thing that I care about, must protect, type thing. But, you know, Selkie, which means that, you know, Sue gets to see Cirrus again. So, like, all, you know, the girls are all just kind of having fun. It's also just an excuse to show the girls in swimsuits. And, you know, so they have fun there and everything. And Selkie even says to Riku, it's like, part of, you know, one of the things of this is, of course, you know, letting the kids have fun reminds them what they're fighting for. And I very much like that concept, because it's like, if all you do is work, you don't really have, you know, yeah, you may love your job, and that's great. And like the you know, the heroes love being heroes for the most part. I mean, yes, there's bad sides about being a hero too. Pain, death, failure, which is, you know, not fun, but, you know, most of the time it's like, we're doing our job so that way other people have the ability to still have time to relax and can enjoy their lives, but then we can too, because we did a good job as being heroes. And like Selkie talks to Riku about that, and she agrees. And then the two agencies are working together, and they do end up going after the people that are trying to smuggle Trigger into the country. Or through the country, and, you know, they do a lot of, you know, Sue and Ochako using their quirk together very well. Same thing with, you know, Nejire. Ochako kind of basically acts as like a harpoon at some point, because she, like, you know, zeroes out her gravity, and they like fire her so she can go really, really far, really, really fast. At one point, and you know, they do take down the you know, the smugglers, which is of course a good thing. And they're able to do that. And of course, you know, they're all happy, and then they, you know, get to relax on the beach again. You know, so that's fun. And then the miscellaneous agencies, these are just the rest of the Class 1B students, just because I haven't really talked about them before. We do not see what agency they go to. Some of them are at either the same agency, or like in pairs of different agencies, or just like one at one agency. So we, of course, we have Nito Monoma, Phantom Thief, quirk copy. Pony Sukutori Rockady is her hero name, and her quirk is Horn Cannon. I love her. She is adorable. She's from America. We have Itsuka Kendo, quirk Battle Fist, or a hero named Battle Fist, sorry. Quirk Big Fist. We've seen a fair amount of Kendo. And then we have Reiko Yanagi, whose quirk, whose hero name is Emily, and whose quirk is Poltergeist. She, of course, has the ability to manipulate objects and like fly them around and everything. Then we have Hiru Rin, hero name Dragon Shroud. quirk scales. He produces scales on his body, and he can manipulate the scales, like fire them off and stuff like that. We have Yosei Tsu Awase, whose hero name is Welder, and his quirk is Weld. He, of course, has the ability to like touch two objects and can like weld them together. He can weld people to each other as well. We have Kinoko Komori, hero name Shimej, quirk Mushroom. She can, grow mushrooms all over the place. She can, well, she can't make them appear out of thin air, but she has, spray guns that she uses to spread seeds and pollen all over the place, and then she can grow them from that. And then we have Shihei Kuorio, scheming hero Vanta Black, nice name by the way, whose quirk is just black, and it's basically he can move around and become one with anything that is the color black. So like shadows, clothing that is the color black. He messes with dark shadow at one point. So that's kind of a cool thing. He's also very like edgy, the way that Fumikage is. And then we have Toguru Kamakiri, Jack Mantis, whose quirk is razor sharp. He can create blades that appear to come out of like his forearms. I don't know if those are the only places he can make the blades come out of, but that's very cool. And then we have Sen Kiyabara, who is spiral, and his quirk is gyrate. He can spin different parts of his body. So he can like spin his fingers at like extremely high speeds, and like spin his arms as well. And part of his hero gear is he has like his gloves have like spinning blades on them. Not like a screwdriver, but like a drill, like a drill bit. They have drill bits on them. I'm like, I know the word. What is it? Drill bit on them, and like they're like on his fingers, so he can like spin them around really fast, which would be really good if he has to like dig through something really quickly. But it also spins his arms, so he can like generate even more power. And let's see, then we have Kosei Subararba. I apologize. Name Subarara. Quirk Solitaire. He just hasn't come up with his hero name yet, so it's just his name. His quirk is Solitaire. He can produce solid blasts of air. And depending on, like, he can manipulate the shape. We've seen him make, like, a box. So basically, just, like, he is a mime's either best friend or worst nightmare. Because it's like, he can literally put the mime inside of an invisible box. He can like literally do that. He can trap people inside of the boxes or make barriers or shields or different things like that, which is really a very nice thing to be able to do. And then we have Juzo Hononuki, Mudman, who is the other quirk softening, who's the other one that was one of the other recommendation students. He's kind of the skeleton looking guy. He of course his quirk is of course he can like touch solid objects and then make them soft. We see him do this with Todoroki's ice at one point. He like touches Todoroki's ice and then he can make it soft, and it's still ice, so it's still like freezing cold, and like it still like weighs as much as ice, but he can like make it liquidy. And then, like, he can, like, swim in it. And then he can also, like, solidify it again. Which is what he does to Ida at one point during the, the joint training. And then we have Yui Kodai, who is Rule, whose quirk is Size. She has the ability to shrink objects. I think she can also grow objects, but mostly shrink objects down to, like, a certain size of what they were. And then she can, release them and make them larger. So I guess she's kind of like Ant-Man. And then the last one is Kojiro Bondo, hero name Plamo. Quirk is Semidyne. he has the ability to produce like glue from his face. Yeah, I know. I still find that very weird. I mean, like, depending on like that'd be very good for like stabilizing, stuff that's gonna fall during like, like stabilizing things like in a wreckage area, and you're trying to dig people out of the wreckage. You can like glue the wreckage and stuff like that. So that's a very useful thing there. All of them are all at different agencies doing their own training. It's never specified what agency, but given the fact that every single one of the Hero Corps students, so this would also include anyone else in the other, like the second year students and anybody else that's in the same classes as, Mirio and his group. The only one that's exempt from that is in the Hero course is, of course, Mirio, because he currently cannot do that. And now, of course, we get into the Endeavor Agency, which, of course, we, know who Endeavor, Todoroki Enji, Endeavor, current #1 hero, well, at the time of this in the anime, current #1 hero. He is, of course, the father of Shoto Todoroki, who is, of course, hero named Shoto, quirk half hot, half cold. Of course, the other two interns at the agency at the time are, of course, Izuku Midoriya Deku, quirk one for all, and Kasuke Bakugo, Kachan, great explosion, murder, god, dynamite, quirk explosion. Is not called that at the time. At the moment, he's just like Katsuki at the moment, because he has not told anyone his actual new hero name yet, because he hasn't seen Best Jeanist yet, so he wants to wait until Best Jeanist. Shoto invites Izuku and Kasuke to, of course, intern at Endeavor's agency. Izuku had initially tried to see if he would be able to intern with, like, Centipeter at the Night Eye agency again. But Night Eye, with Night Eye's death, unfortunately, several arcs previously, Centipeter and Bubble Girl are currently not at the ability to handle having an intern or handle having a work study student, because there's like so much stuff that they're still taking care of and sorting out and everything. So Izuku can't go there. So he ends up getting invited to, of course, by Shoto to come and, come and intern at Endeavor's agency, which, of course, Endeavor basically is just like, okay, I told you I wanted you to come. Why did you bring them? And Shoto's like, they're my friends. Katsuki, I am not his friend. I am here because I wanted to train with the #1 hero, and you better freaking live up to your expectations, or else I'm gonna, blow you up or whatever. So, yeah, they, this is where we get to see Shoto and his dad kind of have a little bit more of a working relationship, because yes, this is during the time frame when Endeavor is kind of going through his, redemption arc a little bit. I am still working on getting the stuff ready for the video where I compare like Endeavor to Kaido, and that will also kind of do a little bit of like comparing, Shoto and Yamato to a degree. But, so Endeavor is kind of at that time frame still going through some of that, learning experience and getting a little bit, trying to do better by Shoto and by Rei and, Fuyumi and Natsuo during that time frame. And so he's like, fine, sure, your friends can be here. Fine, we'll do that. They can be here and be part of the whatever. I'm fine. I have no problem with that. I didn't want to spend time bonding with my son. Why would I want to do that? No. Endeavor wouldn't do that. Or at least, I mean, like, in a different world, if Endeavor was a better human being, then I'm sure him and Shoto would get along fine, and probably Dabi, Toya wouldn't have run away. Faked his own death and ran away. That's for a different story. That's a different video. But, so they start training and everything, and literally, like, as soon as they get there, Endeavor's like, yeah, now let's just see if you can keep up with me. And then, like, he's running off because, like, something's happening, and the other three are just, like, immediately chasing after him. Shoto is sliding along his ice, Izuku jumping along using one for all, and, Kasuki, propelling himself with his explosions, getting on their equipment and everything ready to go and, fight. And they take down Star Servant, who's just, this the end times are nigh, man. He's just like this, guy that has this ability to manipulate glass, and he's like floating through, and he's like, the end times are nigh, and we are going to be led by a bright light down a tunnel of horrible things, type thing. Prophet man, and Izuku showed Izuku, Shoto, and Bakugo are of course trying to take him down and take down his henchmen. Endeavor takes down Star Servant, and then Hawk shows up and swoops in and takes out the three minions himself, so that way Shoto and the other two can't. And during this time frame is of course Hawk's gives Endeavor a copy of the Meta Liberation Army, the Meta Liberation Army philosophy thing that was written by Destro. And he gives that to Endeavor, and he's like, here, read this. And it's like coded messages type of a thing. And he gives copies to Izuku, Shoto, and Midori, and Katsuki, because they all say something. And again, I'm gonna go over that when I go over the Meta Liberation Army, because I am gonna talk more about Destro. I talked about Destro in the villains video, or the villains that are dead video. I talked about that there. So if you want that, go and look that up on the channel. But I'm gonna go over that a little bit more. So Endeavor basically tells Izuku, Shoto, and Bakugo that it's like, your goal for the time that you are here is to try to catch a villain before me once. You do that, and you kind of pass. We do also get to see some of the other interns that he has. We see Burning, who has this burning green hair. She's kind of cool looking. I do like her. We see some of the other interns, of course. And it is kind of shown that all of the different, the interns, well, they're all sidekicks. Actually, the other ones are all sidekicks. And they're all used to the fact of Endeavor being so on the ball with everything. And I've mentioned this before. Ray has stated that it's no, Endeavor, yes, horrible husband, horrible human being, horrible father, is a good hero. And we see him jumping all over, stopping trucks from hitting people, and saving people that had their stuff stolen, and jumping all over the place. And he's trying to help, he wants to help Izuku and Shoto and Bakugo, of course, get better. Initially, he's just I'm just going to help Shoto. The other you two can just flounder and drown for all I care. I don't think he actually wants them to, drown or actually fail, because that's not good on him. But when he looks over the Liberation Army, front, looking over the books and everything, he gets the message from Hawks that they're gonna be coming, and they're gonna be coming soon, and we need to be prepared. And that's when he's like, okay, I do have to train the other two just as much as I'm gonna train Shoto. And Izuku, this is when Izuku is of course learning how to manipulate Black Whip more, and Endeavor is helping train Izuku with that, helping with Bakugo and Shoto as well, getting better with Shoto learning to use his fire more. And of course, all of this training compounds, because near the end of it, near the end of the arc, their time there, Fuyumi invites Endeavor and the three boys to come and have dinner at their home, at the Todoroki home. And I'm not really going to talk too much about the dinner, because I'm going to talk about more of that in the Kaido Endeavor video, or if I talk about the Todoroki family, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more there. But they all have a dinner together, and then Natsuo leaves, and then unfortunately Natsuo gets captured by this villain that is just called Ending. He has the ability to manipulate paint that's on roads, which I'm okay. I can see the applications of this for both heroes and villains. I can very much see the applications of this. He seems the ability to manipulate paint, I think. And he captured Natsuo, and he's using Natsuo as a way to get Endeavor to try to destroy him, because Ending wants Endeavor to be the one to kill him. He wants to go out in a blaze of glory, by Endeavor's flames. And, so Endeavor is, of course, trying to save Natsuo, and Ending is causing even more problems. And, there's, these cars that are falling, and, Izuku saves them with Black Whip, and Shoto, saves you know, some people with like his fire or his ice, and like, you know, Bakugo is able to save Natsuo, and then Shoto is the one that freezes Ending so he can't escape and kind of like immobilizes him. And, you know, so the three were able to capture the villain before Endeavor, because every single time over the last, you know, 2 weeks or whatever amount of time that they've been there, every single time Endeavor beats them to it. And so they're just like, oh my God, how, you know, how can we do this? How can we keep getting, you know, how can we get past this and everything? And like, you know, Bakugo's like, well, it's winter and it takes me a little while to warm up. And Endeavor's like, that's not an excuse that you can keep using. And so, you know, Bakugo is probably going to have to start, you know, different things that they have to learn. You know, Izuku has to learn to be able to focus on manipulating Black Whip the way that, you know, Endeavor compares it to like the guy, like they show a guy driving and he's like, you know, he's breathing and driving and possibly, you know, listening to the radio, or, you know, into, you know, listening to whatever's on the radio and like paying attention to driving, like all this stuff at the same time, and kind of not even thinking about it. And, you know, it's like, it's something that has become second nature to him. So many things become second nature to him. And with Izuku and his quirk, I mean, you know, we, of course, as the reader or as the watcher, we know that Izuku has not had his quirk as long as anybody else has, because everybody else's quirk has had their quirk since they were like, you know, 3, 4, 5 years old. Whereas Izuku has only had his quirk for, you know, less than a year. At this point in time. Actually, it's like probably even less than like 8 months at this point in time or so. So he hasn't had his quirk nearly as long, and yet he has made leaps and bounds of progress with it. But now with, you know, with Black Whip being added to that, he now has to learn to manipulate that like it's second nature. You know, do that the way, you know, manipulate that like the way that he breathes, or the way that he instantly knows how much force he needs to use, how much power of, you know, one for all for him to use. And Endeavor is trying to teach him with that, of course, and help Bakugo more with his like explosions and things, and of course help, you know, Shoto with being able to, you know, use his fire more the way that Endeavor does, and, you know, burn hotter, and things like that. And, you know, so we're seeing that evolution there for those characters. And, you know, and that's a nice thing to watch. We get to watch as the students get better and better. And then, of course, you know, they all go back to UA after the winter break is finished. And they're all, you know, talking with each other about, like, their different training that they did, and what they, you know, all the different things that they'd, you know, seen, did, trained, practiced, gotten better at, learned, and everything while they were on their, you know, work studies. And, you know, most of the heroes that we saw in the work studies, we're going to see again during the Paranormal Liberation Army arc. And we'll see, like, how all of them interact with each other as heroes and with their former, you know, students or so. Because, of course, the Safety Commission is like, okay, well, we have to have so many new heroes because there's like they're like low on personnel, as Midnight puts it, and we need to get more heroes, and we need to be able to have so many of these heroes to fight the Liberation Army, and, you know, or to fight whatever is coming, whatever that may be, because Hawks can only give them so much information because he's being watched so heavily by, you know, by the Paranormal Liberation Army and by, you know, the League of Villains and everything. So we'll see where that goes. That's basically the it for the internships. Down the line, we'll see. As I said, I'm working on a video. I'm working on like the aspects of being a hero video, which will probably be the next one. And, you know, barring anything else major happening in the manga, and me wanting to talk about that instead. So I'll have that one. I'm doing one about like hero body images, or like the way that they portray the body images of heroes, or the way that, you know, the characters are designed in My Hero. And then another one about like the where it's, you know, yeah, the students are all training to be heroes and everything, but even, you know, Izawa and the teachers have to admit that they're still students, they're still children, and they still need time to be able to just be teenagers and be with their friends. And I'm working on a video where I talk about that. And then of course the Kaido versus, Endeavor video. I want to wait until I get so we get a few more images of like Momo from the anime that I can use, and then of course I'll be doing that. So I'll be working on that one. That might come out, given how I like kind of record these in batches, that might either come out before or after this one. So we'll see. But that's what I have for the third internships or the work studies round 3. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. The agreements we had with all those agencies were made ad hoc to see how things went. But this time, the Public Safety Commission itself has requested that every Hero Course student participate in what they're calling practical field testing.